Um, well, I'll go through a quick background of my story, how I became and working as a concept artist at Arena. Well, I was born in Hawaii. I went to school, went to high school, always was kind of like a artist. I like to doodle, draw stuff. When I was in high school, I was just like, oh, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? What college are you going to go to? And I realized that I wasn't really good at anything else but drawing. So at that point, I had to make so I was like, fuck it, go to art school. So after that, that was like 2000 I graduated, and then like a few months afterwards, I just packed my bags, moved to Seattle, went to the Art Institute there. Stayed there for 2 years. It was still a 2-year program back then. They didn't switch over to a bachelor's yet, but that was graduated in 2002. Graduated, dicked around for a year or so, interviewing in jobs. I paid bills I worked late nights as a tech at a radio station where I took care of all like the late night radio stations where it's just like it's all recorded, so if there's a problem, I was there to like take care of it. But in 2003, late 2003, I actually got my first job at Arena. And I wasn't a concept artist. I was a texture artist. I painted the ground. I painted rocks, grass, rocks on grass, snow, snow on rocks, rocks on snow, many, many different combinations. There were 112 by 112 squares, and there were 4 of them on a texture sheet. So that was like one texture that the guys put into like the game engine, and they could paint the ground basically. Yeah, that was great. I did that a year and a half of just painting the ground. I mean, it was just like the worst. I still have nightmares of like the worst one I ever did, which was like a black lava rock on snow, which basically came out to be like cookies and cream, I called it. Cookies and cream, like for miles on this game. I'm like, oh, and I was trying to make it look good, and it was just like chunks, and it was like, oh, I still don't like looking at it. But, and there were some like, just the problems. I mean, it's basically because like each texture had to like line up. Most of my job was like making the seams disappear. So there were no seams when you looked at the ground. There were no seams. And the way to do that was I had to select a 1 pixel border around each square, copy that to the 4 other squares, and paint that in. And that is how I got rid of the seams. And I did that for a year and a half. And it was not good. I still feel like that played a part in my determination to never do that ever fucking again. And the thing is, so I worked on the first Guild Wars, and Daniel was there. He played a big part in like hiring me. And after that, we got a chance to do some concepts because it was just like downtime because we finished the game. And everybody got to do concepts, and that was like my first experience ever doing concepts because we got these chances. All the guys I was part of like a young group of artists, and we're all like artists, and Daniel really believed in us. And we just got to draw whatever for the next game. And that was like my first real experience there. And this just kind of continued from there. Throughout the years and throughout the projects, I slowly kind of distanced myself. I did less and less terrain textures and icons, and I did more and more concepts. And finally, like a few years ago, I was finally like promoted to be a concept lead at Arena underneath Daniel. And it took me, and I'm here now, eight years later, doing presentations in Singapore. And really, I mean, I'm just a kid from Hawaii, and didn't know anything, didn't even have a computer. Barely used a computer until I got to art school. I mean, I didn't know shit. But so, I mean, it's just that as long as you have drive, you have a passion, and you really, really want it, you can do whatever the fuck you want to. And the thing is, like, all you gotta think about it and plan and be correct, and you can go anywhere. But anyway, enough about me. You guys didn't come here to talk, hear me talk. I just want to since I only have 2 hours and 15 minutes to usually I'm demonstrating my process. So Since I only have 2 hours and 15 minutes, I mean, that's actually kind of rough, because usually I like to do, like, whenever I do a presentation, it's usually like 6 hours, and I could just like paint and talk and do whatever I want to. But 2 hours and 15 minutes, I actually have to, like, may have to concentrate a little bit more. But and since like we have a Q&A afterwards, most of the questions, a lot of my presentations, I love like talking to people, and if you guys ask me questions, I usually try to answer them. I'm not too sure how feasible that is in this setting, so at this point I'm just going to like babble on and try and just show my bag of tricks right now. I'm not trying to do anything mind-blowing right now because it's just too short and too much pressure. But anyway, first thing I wanted.
Thiếu kiên nhẫn hơn theo Duy nhiều.
I can't use that because my Windows don't pop up. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I really don't use a lot of brushes, but I don't really use a lot of brushes, but I do have a few that I've been using for a very long time. I just want to do a quick demonstration of like how I use my brushes, because it's not really important, like the brushes aren't really important by themselves, it's how you use them. So if you have 1,000 brushes, if you use them well, they look good. You can have 1,000 brushes, if you don't use it well, they look shit. But so this is like my main go-to brush. This is like the one that is very simple. It's just that with and it's basically what I use to do all my paintings. Like this is the base one. In combination with that, I have an eraser, the same thing. And I can use my eraser. And it's all about using the combination of like all these different things, and that's what makes it. It's not like just one paint stroke and that's it. It's a combination of things that I use. Another big one is the smudge brush that I use. It's just the smudge, which is basically you just take a nice noisy brush and you set it on scattering, and using this I can get like a kind of painterly watercolor feel depending on how you use it. Kind of blend it, but usually I like to use it just to like add some addition. It's like a combination thing. You can also turn off the scattering, and then it becomes like a hard, like a palette knife that you can just like cut things with. And then for when I use my brush, I like to use textures. So basically, it's just like these are like round. These are like regular textures I found online or whatnot. It's just like basically like any sort of brown texture, anything that has grit. Just put it inside there, and then like it's not the default ones. And then you just turn it on and off. And it's the combination of all these things that it's not just one thing. It's always like always like a combination of either this, tag it off with that, turn on the texture, select white, and like that. I mean, it's like always like this constantly over and over and over again. Also, another thing that I like to do is I use like dual brush, which is kind of like it blends two brushes together. So I like to use it like this. Spacing, you can control all this kind of stuff. And what that does is, depending on how you set it up, you can get like some cool stuff out of it. And it's just like, this is the stuff I've been using for a very long time. I can manipulate it to get the lots of different effects that I want. It just depends on how if a problem presents itself, how do I use it? I prefer using the stuff the stuff I've been using for a very long time. My process has changed over the period I've been doing this, but that's just because I don't really change that willy-nilly. I mean, if I'm going to change it, it has to be fundamentally part of my system, my thought process. So if I'm going to add like a new trick, it's not going to just be like, a one-off thing. I mean, it has to be like something I'm gonna use every single time, because at that point, I can't like have like little like bits and pieces of knowledge I'm not gonna use. I want the go-to stuff that can help me. So when I'm doing a job, I know exactly what tool I have in my box to solve it. So anyway, so you're gonna be seeing me do all that stuff very quickly. I mean, most people, like, I've done presentations before and they're like, oh, what was that? I was like, no, it wasn't that, it was actually this, because I just like hotkeyed it really fastly and then, you know, just like switch on and off. One of the great things about working in like Photoshop is like, you know, a lot of people just like have a default thing. I like to be comfortable. That's one of the things I like to tell people is like, be comfortable about your workstation. As you see here, I have a very minimalist thing. I have my layers panel, I have my brushes, I have a navigator, because navigator is like my shorthand for like looking at it as a thumbnail. It's right there. Some people like to use a duplicate window, but that's like two more steps that I don't need to. And navigator is right there. I can just look at this and like, you know, kind of like double check how my overall image is coming along if I'm doing something, if I'm noodling something in details. Also, like I love to arrange my workspace. I love to go through my keyboard and shortcuts. I love to turn off different things. Like if there's buttons for tools I don't use, and I keep on, I sometimes like too much, I accidentally press it, I'll turn it off because I don't need it. I reset things, actions that I love to do over and over again. I like to control my, you know, flip my canvas. I like to flip, you know, just stuff like this. It's just to be able to just do things easier. It's just like it's not like I have to go through a window and stuff. It's just there. It's like, so just to make things easier for you, make things comfortable. So that's like a quick, like kind of basic overview of what kind of tools I use and like what. So you're gonna be seeing all this stuff as I'm doing my painting. So right now I'm gonna start something. I always tend to start black and white, grayish. I mean, I don't start with color. I'm not really that comfortable with color. Color comes at the end in my process for me. I start things black and white, with grayscale, with tonal. I believe that value is far more important than any sort of color, right? If your tones are correct, it doesn't matter what your color is, it's gonna be kind of wrong. But if your tones are correct and you can pretty much put any sort of color on it, it'll kind of like read what right. So that's like the basic thing that I kind of operate under. So whenever I start like a piece, I'm always like, it's always a quick kind of thumbnail, like set up a scene. And right now it's just like, right now I'm not really like, I don't have like a document in front of me. I don't have like if I'm doing a book cover, I don't have like usually for a book cover, they send me like a passage that they want to see illustrated. But so for right now, I'm just gonna kind of goof off and do just like kind of paint like a normal scene and just try and demonstrate many different aspects of how I work to you guys. Sometimes it may not be the correct. I may do something that may not be the correct thing to do, but to demonstrate it, I will. So please forgive me if I make something look bad. I'm a little better than this.
Okay, can we try to clean the screen real quick? I think there's like a weird spot. I don't know if it's part of the screen or not. You guys see that? It's like a weird circle. Let's see. Maybe not.
In the meantime, to make this part entertaining, I'll throw in a couple of comments. One thing that Keka said that really, resonated with me, and it's a big part of my personal belief, is when he said that his process and technique changed along with his thinking process. I think that's a really key thing to keep in mind. Technique should be a natural extension of your thinking process and should never be gratuitous and just technique for its own sake. Style should happen naturally. We should never just seek to throw in extravagant or fancy effects just without backing them with substance or a good reason originating deep in our most intimate creative thinking. Also, another thing I want to say, to hopefully make Kekai feel a little better about his first year and a half. His first year and a half at ArenaNet, when he was doing nothing but painting 112 by 112 pixels textures. Of course, if you ask most people in the gaming industry, especially in the fantasy genre, what is the most important thing in a game, 99% will say it is your character. It's who you identify with. It's the hero. That's where you need to focus most of your attention. I come from the position, granted it's a rather unpopular position, that the most important thing in a game. Okay, sorry. I come from the school of thought that the most important art asset in a game, especially in a game where you look at the world, from a God's eye perspective down at the world, are the ground textures. The ground textures fill 85, 90, 95% of the screen at any time. Your character will be just a few pixels tall, more often than not running away, looking away from the camera. You'll see tiny in the middle of the screen. It's the ground textures, the ground cover, bushes, grasses, stuff like that, that you fill the rest of the screen. And how you handle those bread and butter art assets is what makes a huge difference, in my opinion.
Hey, Kakai, do me a favor and do Control S as well.
Oh, yeah. Control
That was
S.
pretty cool. Never seen anyone do that.
Kick folder. One. All right. All right, so thanks, Daniel. The way I did it there, that was a warp tool. I found it when I switched over to CS2, I believe, and I really like it. I like to use it for basically everything. I can use it for when I have like a lighting situation where I have something like that, and then I can warp it and have it.
Just a small trick. Đấy, cọ mờ xong rồi kéo nó ra thôi. Tức là cái này là cái ánh sáng. Không phải. Rất nhiều người nó sẽ đè lên tất cả mọi thứ luôn. Nó làm cho cái hình của em nó có vẻ rất chiều sâu.
Nhưng mà nó cho là nó kéo từ một ánh sáng nó kéo đều ra.
Like this, I can warp it if I want to like
Chứ này Facebook cũng có dùng.
fiddle around with its perspective to fit inside. If I have an environment,
Kiểu
I
này
can
lên file
warp the
đồ
card
cực
thing
lắm.
to like get a little bit
Ví
more.
dụ sketch nhân vật thôi.
I want some more oomph to it. I'll just kind of tweak it a little
Để
bit.
chi để mấy cọ mờ á, cọ cứng á, nó bị nhuyễn, nó mờ đi chút xíu, nó không còn cứng như là cái hình graph nữa, đúng không?
Nhiều hơn.
dùng cái ráo kéo đó chỉ để cho nhòa những cái nét cọ cứng thôi.
Yeah, so right now I'm just kind of like trying to fill in some stuff. Not too sure what's going to go on here, but try my best. Right now I have like I don't really use that many layers during like a piece like this. But I do use a few just to, keep the elements separate, organize it. Sometimes it gets too messy and then I'll just flatten it just because some of my work process just needs it to be flat and it's easier. But if I have like different elements to a piece, I'll just try to keep it kind of separate so I can control each one. If I want to add color to one area, I can just kind of like work on that.
So I got a quick question for you. You say you didn't draw a lot, draw kind of stuff, but obviously you're very exposed to fantasy type of ideas, Did you read a lot of books or anything like that?
That's actually one thing that actually really helped me is working in the fantasy genre. I'm actually kind of a fan of the fantasy genre itself. I love to read fantasy novels. I mean, I've been reading them since I was a kid. So it actually kind of helped me, kind of like when I'm working on like this fantasy game for Guild Wars, I feel like I kind of a leg up because I already know what they want. Kind of like if they want to talk about something, we want this. I'm like, I already kind of know where they're coming from, and knowing that gives me an advantage as I can control that. So that as an artist, I can control that as, when I present the idea, it's going to be coming from my eyes. But in the background, it's going to be still in the same vein, and that when like the designer or the producer or whoever is looks at it, they will kind of resonate with it because they're like, I've seen that in my mind before. You're like, of course, because I read it too. And it just helps. So.
What are those books, by the way? Like David Eddings in those kind of books? Or?
What's that?
What's on the books? I'm just curious.
What kind of books?
Yeah.
I used to read a lot of like D&D back then, like when I was younger, and then as I grew up, I got into like kind of higher fantasy stuff. I mean, there's Tolkien and all those guys, but with like George R. R. Martin right now, the Song of Fire and Ice series, I got into that really early. It was like he kind of pioneered like the whole like gritty realism, or like the really dark, really realism, because there was always kind of like the gritty, realistic fantasy, but I don't know, George R. R. Martin did something a little different. He actually made it kind of like beefy and drama-ish, probably because he's like a screenwriter and did like Beauty and the Beast, but yeah, stuff like that I really like right now, the darker stuff. So right now I spent like a lot of time right now in the background. I figure I have to put a character in here somewhere at some point. Right now it's just kind of like, getting stuff on the page, setting the scene up a little bit. I'm not too sure what the guy's going to be doing here, but I'm just going to wing it. Try to get some drama.
I think we'll all agree that Kekai has a lot of confidence. It's pretty intimidating to see how confidently he places his brushstroke. And this doesn't come overnight. That's all I can tell you. It's the result of years and years of hard work and eventually, overcoming your fear of failure, which is probably the most important thing we all need to get over with. Failing is part of the process, and unless you come to accept it and to embrace failure, and even taking it one step further, plan for failure occasionally, set time aside for experimenting, knowing that you'll fail. You can achieve this level of confidence if you're, timid and worried about failing.
I failed a lot, guys. So. But yeah, actually, something similar. Guys like ask me like, oh yeah, when do you experiment and find out new things? And usually it's just like, I don't like to. Well, for one thing, I'm like, okay, I have my process. I'm gonna use my process. I know what my process is. So when do you get a chance to like try new things? I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do it in the middle of a job. I mean, that's just fucking stupid. Like, why? I already have enough pressure as it is. Why do I want to like try to do this willy-nilly thing inside the middle of in the middle of the night, just to see what happens? This is when experimentation comes, when you're working like on your own pieces, like your personal time, where you do have that luxury to like try, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna maybe do this, because sometimes when you're working, you're on a deadline, you're on like a somebody's breathing down your neck and everything. I mean, sometimes you just really just can't experiment. You just have to do you gotta just solve the problem, do something that's gonna get it done, and then just ship it. So again, like, experimentation, a lot of times, as you're doing a personal piece, that's when it happens. For me, not during the job.
Come on, man. When's anybody breathing down your neck? It's not me for sure. Anyway, guys,
I'm trying to create this ambiance.
Keka is always the kind of the go-to person when you want a job done, and be assured that it'll be good, and the magazines will get the materials they're asking for on a short notice, because marketing is always late and they don't plan enough, and it's always due yesterday, and they want an exclusive piece of concept that no other magazine will get. And that's when we go to Keka and say, hey, can you whip it out real quick? You have half a day or a day, and it'll get done, and it'll be great.
Well, I hope it's gonna be great. I guess it does have to be great. Pressure. So again, like, this is still like something, right? So again, like, this is just like, so this is like, I'm still like, it's still broad strokes. Like the highlights are like, the highlights are like super like, it's like, oh, boom, right there. There's no actual light there, but it's just like, that's like a shorthand for like display. As I'm working, then I'll start like, toning it down. But for now, I'm hitting things really harsh just to like try to cut out the shape of this. And as I'm doing this, I am trying to design the character, that's the guy that's standing here at the same time, which is actually kind of like, again, it just takes a long time. You just kind of like throw marks down on the page. And, as you, happy accidents, allow for flexibility in your workflow to kind of like see things and then like experience to know when it's a good idea and when it's not. I mean, it just takes a while just to like be able to like train your eye and train your mental like thinking that that, okay, this is a good decision. Because right now it's just like when we're working on a piece, it's just a bunch of decisions. Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. It's just like spreads, right? But to practice, that's where having a good art director or director above you is good, because they can look at it and they can help you make those decisions. When you're working by yourself, you're doing a self-critique, and sometimes it's lost. The thinking process is lost, and you don't make good decisions. And you kind of like pop up, and then instead of going like the right path, right, you just end up kind of like going somewhere else. So having like a, you know, being able to actually like recognize like when you're in like a crossroads of sorts, to recognize when is it a good decision to do this, or when should I hop on this, when should I give up on this particular brushstroke or this thing, and you know, things just like if it's not working, toss it away. If it's working, or should I take a chance and like go in that direction?
That being said, I don't want you guys to believe that, you know, every fork in the road, every decision Kekai has to make, he calls me over. Although I'm just, you know, 10 feet away from him. It's not, I believe that's not the way a project or a piece should be art directed. I think the art director's job is to communicate in really high level terms up front, you know, what kind of the driving idea is. Put in place a good framework of do's and don'ts and the requirements for the piece, which then the artist can refer to this grid work of values, refer to every step of the way when making their decisions, and when facing those yes or no moments, always have, you know, all those values clearly prioritized and the hierarchy clear, you know, to help you through those forks in the road.
Just after that, Daniel, actually, I worked with him for about a year as well, art director, because of the high thinking. You know, I remember he used to do those paintings on grocery bags, right? Were they? Yeah, because in the States, when you buy groceries, they ask you plastic or paper, and the conscious guys always ask for paper. And then what happens is that they're actually great canvases for painting. So Daniel used to do these paintings off of these grocery bags and hang them on the wall. So when I first went over to ArenaNet from Los Angeles to check out the studio, I saw this beautiful stuff, but they're so high concept, it makes the stuff I do sometimes seem really lame, because I'm thinking from a very small point of view, and Daniel here is solving grand views. And what that single painting does, it opens up an entire world for concept guys that are going to work off that piece. So it was great. So, speaking of ArenaNet, you know, when I first met you, remember we were making fun, it rains a lot in Seattle, and these guys, they don't, to find someone who's from Seattle, they don't use an umbrella. That's what Daniel told me, right? So these guys walk to lunch in pouring rain without any umbrella, and you know, so you can tell who's a tourist, which is me with an umbrella, and then the rest of these guys just walking drenched in the rain and as if nothing has happened. So you do that too, Kekai?
Yeah, I love it.
And there's a lot of ducks swimming around the streets of Seattle.
It's so great having these guys talking for me because I don't have to talk too much.
Back to the notion of art directing at high level. Part of that is laziness on my part, you know, because of course it's easier to just you know, kind of set the goal up front and let them do their job. But of course you cannot do that with every artist. It's only the most senior ones who can really take high-level input and translate it into valid artwork. The junior artists usually take a lot more, you know, hand-holding, so to speak, and a lot more micromanaging. Kekai was part of this class at the Art Institute, which was, in my opinion, the best class ever, and that it was just a miracle that will probably never happen again, where 4 out of people out of that class, they all ended up at ArenaNet and became just amazing, world-renowned concept artists. Richard Anderson, Levi Hawkins, Jason Stokes, who runs a school over in Seattle. So it was probably because they were in the same class that drove them to competing against each other in a very friendly manner, and they also happened to be very close friends and kind of grew as artists together, but it's not the norm, but rather than the exception. What I'm trying to say is that all of these 4 guys had that ability to work from really high level verbal, input. They never need, sketching or kind of a starter type of concept to get them going. Just a verbal or description, or at most a doodle on a napkin, and they'll just take you to a whole new level.
Thanks, Daniel. Let me on this right now.
Well, one thing you guys will notice here is that although he's not necessarily following a preconceived composition, as he very honestly admitted that he doesn't know for sure where he's heading with this piece. That doesn't mean that it's all left up to hazard and accident. There's a mood, there's an emotion, there's a sense of drama that he's pursuing, and the composition and everything else is subordinated to that. So it's not just mindless doodling. It is all, every stroke is again weighed against that that grid work or that system of values that he's set for himself, where he's asking himself, is this what he's just doing? Is this adding to that mood, to that atmosphere, to the story I'm trying to tell? Is the move when he does his warping, is the movement that he's implying in the piece is that advancing the story in the right direction or not.
Is anyone else in there really impressed right now? Because I'm really impressed now. It's just really, really nice work. I think it's like digital porn or something. It's like concept art. You just look at it, it just looks good. I don't know how to describe it.
Thanks, dude.
I think it's really good, but I have one question, guys.
I don't know. Yeah.
What are you doing, without doing painting? Is there anything you're trying to improve yourself, doing something except the painting?
What I do to improve myself?
Yep.
Actually, I'll do a lot to improve myself. But
It's it's amazing, controlling lighting situation, you keep switching the canvas to keep correcting things. I think you're really confident about what you're doing, but it's really interesting to see how you come up with the idea. And It's great, yeah.
Speaking of flipping the canvas,
Oh, yeah.
it's,
Well,
were you gonna answer the question?
I was gonna say that even though I flip my canvas a lot, I don't suggest people doing that.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
No, but if you do it too much, I have a direction I wanna try, so.
Sure. All right. All I want to say is that it is important that you guys, when you do that, you are aware that the flipping the canvas, while it is a good tool to evaluate, your perspective, your balance, your construction, it is also completely changing the way you read the image, because we are trained to scan an image in a particular pattern, and when you flip it, you still scan it in the same way, but you perceive the different compositional elements you read them in a different order, and therefore the perceived importance of those elements changes. The hierarchy of the compositional elements within the piece changes when you flip it. So I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just
Be aware of it.
be aware of it. Yeah. It's almost like,
I tell the guys that when I do my thing.
Sure.
I'm joking. Thanks, Dave.
So, Kyle, mind if I ask you some technical questions, since I'm sure a lot of students are itching right now?
Okay.
Are you using any special layer settings, or are these all just normal when you do a new layer?
Oh, these are all just normal.
Okay.
So my go-to layers, I like soft light. I use that a lot. I like lighten layers and darken layers. I like to use that because since I do things so much in values, like the grays, black and white, and values. I like those because they kind of like I don't use multiply anymore because it just kills it too fast. I don't use overlay anymore because those things just kill it too fast. They just darken your stuff and everything just drops way too fast into the blacks. With the soft lights, I feel like I'm more able to control my values within stuff. I like the lighten layers and the darken layers because since I'm always playing around with the lights and the darks, and since I use so much black anyway, using the lighten layer, if I use a lighten layer, I'm able to just operate in those blacks and to hopefully control how much is there, while just while keeping the rest of my painting around it fine. And the same thing with the flip with darken. Darken plays on light on the lights and doesn't show up on anything darker than this. And then I can just pop open see, that's my lighting layer right there. So you can see that's white, so that's what all my brush strokes are. But as I go down to black, it disappears because of the alpha, that's how it works. So I'm kind of controlling it where it is there.
I have another pipeline question for you. How far do you carry one of these paintings before you show it to, say, Daniel, before the next, or do you do it all the way to about a almost finished level? All the way.
All the way. Kind of been asked a couple of times, but yeah.
So it's in the wrong direction. What do you do, Daniel?
He scolds me.
It's, what I really believe in is that you need to find the right people and let them do their job and not micromanage them, not impose your own sensibility on them. So we don't really have an approval process in place at Arena. the end result is less than satisfactory, I think I blame myself first and foremost. That means I have not eloquently enough expressed what I wanted out of it. So we really rarely, at least at the TECA seniority level, there's really no need for him to check with me or to check with game designers or producers or any of that. It is. I believe that the style of the game is the product of the sum of the creative input from a large art team. It's not my style that I have to somehow beat into the artist or any one particular artist style. It's the synergy of all these creative minds and the sum of all these distinct sensibilities that forms the overall style of the game. And I think occasional aberrations or departures from the core style are actually beneficial. I'm probably one of the few art directors who thinks that consistency is overrated, and if pushed too far can result in monotony or redundance. I think you have to have consistency to some degree, but occasional little departures, little accidents, little aberrations that kind of spice it up. Very much like if you look at a font. A good font is not, and a font that has life to it and that has a staying power is never boring. It's not excessively consistent. There will be little things here where it's the tiny little tail on the letter Q or God knows what. Little things that kind of have a mind of their own and kind of spice it up. And that's very much the case, I think, with the art style of a game or of any kind of entertainment product for that matter. It's the little imperfections that I think bring it to life.
Bạn nghiên cứu ngày mai gì đâu siêu nhờ viết nha.
Speaking of imperfections, I preach left and right, and the need for imperfections. I think it's what warms up a game environment. I think it's what gives it credibility. My biggest pet peeve, the one thing I hate most is in games when I see environments that are sterile, especially urban environments. You see them in all first-person shooters, or you see them in driving games. Everything looks like extruded straight from from a grid work, a computer grid. People don't take enough time to go in and manipulate and skew things, move things around, misalign things, warp things, twist things, scale up and down, beat up on edges. you know, without necessarily, you know, bad mouthing one game or another, you know, just go through this exercise. Look at any of the games you guys are playing that happen in an urban environment, and you will see how more often than not everything happens to conveniently be, you know, vanishing to the same or converging to the same vanishing point. Everything happens to be on a grid. While in reality, if you look down from your balcony on the street pattern of a city, there's hardly ever a right 90 degrees angle. Everything is a little off, and that makes an environment credible and juicy. Well, in Kekai's case, 90 degrees angles are far and few between. They're hardly ever there, so he doesn't have that problem. But you know, it's back to imperfections. It's what makes a world, a virtual world, believable. I was looking at Forza 4 not too long ago. Many of you have probably seen it. It's probably really, from what I understand, a really good driving game. They had a huge budget and went to a, you know, great effort to make their environments as detailed as possible. They sent an art team over to Europe to spend a couple of weeks in the Alps equipped with high-end cameras, and took thousands and thousands of pictures, of high-resolution pictures, to make sure that all their mountains look photorealistic and everything. Yet, as when I saw the game, it is the actual road surface and the curbs and the fences that run along the road that you see most of. And those, in my opinion, I'm not buying it. They're too perfect. Everything is too straight. You see straight lines running for a mile ahead of you, just perfect laser like a laser beam, and that's where that world loses credibility for me. You can have all the fancy, crazy 2048 textures spent on those mountains in the distance and stuff. If the surface that I'm driving on doesn't look like, you know, doesn't have that grit and credibility, I'm not buying it. It looks sterile. It looks fake. Well, in Kekai's case, there's no shortage of grit and texture ever. So again, we don't have to worry about it.
Okay, so right now I'm slowly switching out of my grays, my tonal values. I'm slowly adding in color. Since never really was that much of a color guy, I keep it kind of simple. As I'm moving away from the grays, I have all my layers here, and I'm just gonna just go through them, and then just like, you know, individually just kind of tweak them. I kind of tend to just go to like the really nice, like burnt umber, warm color spectrum, the warm colors, just because, you know, it's really, it feels nice, and you know, it's a good place to kind of start. So I'm just going through and just kind of tweaking them all, just getting like leaking in some color slowly, just like as I'm going through it. I do that main, with this beginning stuff, I'm using color balance, and I'm just like, kind of like switching through each one, going through the shadows, midtones, highlights, just kind of like gently just trying to like see if I can read anything in. Never, I don't want to like do it overboard too much just because I don't want it to be that strong, but just trying to be fairly gentle with it, so.
So Daniel, and I guess Kai, I got a quick question. How much, I guess, when Kakai is designing a character, is there a direction that you specifically give him, or more like a warrior going into battle? Like, what kind of typical one-liners do you give him?
When it comes to characters, he usually gets that one-liner from the writers, not from me. No, I mean, at times, the writers or the designers may have the head start and kind of initiate that process, but oftentimes the design department is falling behind, and it's up to the artist to kind of drive those decisions. And so oftentimes, Kekai and the guys just freestyle this, and then if it looks like a convincing character, it's like something that makes sense and is inspiring. The writers will kind of retrofit it and find a home for it in the story.
Coffee.
Yeah, guessing these guys are the jet lag's about to hit you guys, I'm sure. So there goes the caffeine.
It was a fucking long flight. The worst part about it was I had to get on a plane in Seattle at like 6:30 in the morning, fly down to San Francisco, and then, you know, the plane flights from the West Coast to Asia that goes like on top of, does that loop up top, and I just saw on a map my plane going past Seattle at like 1 o'clock. I'm like, oh my, it's like I was just there.
That's right. Thanks, Keith, again, man. Thank you guys for flying so far. I know how it is. I used to travel back and forth between Beijing and the U.S. and it's just insane. Kakai, do you guys have a lot of downtime there, or are you basically whipping out stuff every day over there, or do you get to just do something?
Daniel?
It's like the weirdest conference, you know. We never had this kind of.
I don't know what I can say in front of Daniel, really.
Yeah, no.